He's a Super Bowl champion. He's the one of the hosts of Breakfast on Broad on the Comcast network. Barrett Brooks joins us here to take a look at some of the things the Eagles have done over the last 12 hours, Barrett. And, wow, I mean, Howie Roseman came in and said, I'm the boss here, man. And I got to ask you right off the bat, are you impressed with what Roseman's done?
I'm going to have to admit, man, Howie Roseman has an A in my book right now. In fact, an A+. Now, this isn't the midterm. This is just one quarter of the way through the semester. But he has an A in my book right now. I'm going to say the draft will be the halfway point. Going into the start of the season will be, 3/4 away, and I'm going to see what he does as far as his finale, his final, at the end of the season, where they end up. But he did a masterful job of doing what he is, a cap guy, being a capologist. He's definitely fit the bill for that.
Well, all right, let's start with that because you just said it. Everybody thinks of him as a cap guy. He's not a quote-unquote football guy. Do you trust Roseman to run the draft and select players in the draft? I mean, okay, he's done a good job of managing this cap and clearing out some guys, and we'll get into some of the guys one by one. But now do you say, you know what, I think this is the right guy to run the draft?
Well, I'll tell you this. We have no choice in the matter. He's the head guy in charge. So regardless of what we think on this show or any other show, he is the guy that's going to be running the draft. Now, I will say that Coach Peterson will have a lot to do with it, a lot to say, just from the picks that he's done and the people that he's signed. Those are really people that, Doug would want here. But I'm going to tell you this. Let's hope. Let's hope and pray that he doesn't do the same that he did with Osmar and those guys with the Dream Team. And he's learned from that mistake, and now he's going to push forward from learning from Chip Kelly's mistake also and get some more quality guys in here.
I want to ask you about that. Here's the thing with Roseman. He's like Bradford. I mean, it's hard to judge Bradford because of injuries and talent around him and all of these variables, receivers dropping passes, bad offensive line. Roseman.
That's a great way to put that. I'm about to use that.
Well, I want you to mention that tomorrow on the Breakfast on Broad. Mike Gill told me now. So look, seriously though,
and Pete, that and PT loving people.
All right. Thanks, Barrett.
No, but Roseman, like he was the GM by name. But was Reed really making those picks when he drafted Danny Watkins, 2011, when they had a miserable draft? When Kelly first got here, it's kind of hard to figure out how much Roseman really affected the personnel decisions that this team made when he was quote-unquote the GM.
Well, let's not forget the fact that, it was toward the end of Big Red's tenure and the beginning of Chip Kelly, and we didn't know what he wanted on offense. So I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt. I'm going to say that Howie's going to be a football guy, even though he's not. I call him the football cap guy. You got to make that distinction because, he hasn't really had the presence of being in the locker room as much as, most football guys are. He didn't have that connection with a football guy and Peterson has. So we'll see where he is. But I'm tending to believe that he understands talent before he got shunned and pushed away, pushed aside, and just became a cap guy. He was the guy that went to the combine a lot. He went in and did his homework as far as the players and how they're developing in the system, and he was working very, very closely with those term football guys just before Chip Kelly came in. So we'll see. Let's hope for the best.
All right, Barrett Brooks is with us, Breakfast on Broad, 6 to 8 a.m.
I can do the theme music. Barrett, you must hear that in your sleep now, right?
That's all I hear, man. That's all I hear, man. I kind of tune it out now.
Right, and you're like, oh God, do I have to talk? Wait, is it my turn? What's it?
Well, let me ask you this then. Let's go down the list. DeMarco Murray being traded. Does it matter what they get back in return?
No, not. It doesn't matter what they get back in return because he was just a guy that Howie Roseman worked out a masterful trade with these last two in which they just absorbed contracts. It's kind of like the Sixers and what the Sixers have done with a lot of those contracts with Sauce and all those guys. They just absorbed the contract as opposed to them being reliable guys to really play. So they absorbed those contracts, and I don't know how he did it. But he got those guys to, restructure and go to the team. I can understand Maxwell because he's going to be on South Beach, but the fact that Murray went to Tennessee and restructured, I mean, this guy right here, man, he must be a wizard or something, because Howie Roseman pulled off something I didn't think was possible.
All right, let's go down to Kiko Alonso then. Are you okay with them including Alonso? In other words, have you given up on Alonso?
It's not that I gave up on Alonso, but just look, the three of these guys are system-specific type of guys. If you're looking at Maxwell, he's not a man-to-man corner. He's a cover two corner. He always has been a cover two corner. And you look at Murray. Murray's more of a track runner. He's one-step cut going downhill. He wasn't using that capacity. Well, Kiko Alonso's the same way. Kiko Alonso is a 3-4 linebacker. When he goes to this 4-3, you need a bigger, stouter linebacker in there because he's going to have to take on the blunt of a lot of offensive linemen. He's no longer protected like he was with the two-gap system. These guys are one gap. That means they're going to be offensive linemen that will be free, and the middle linebacker will be asked to go in there and take on offensive linemen, take on fullbacks. And in that system, they weren't privileged to that. He's too small. He needs to get a little bit more leadness behind before he'll be a true 4-3 linebacker. So I think it was a good deal because he's not system specific for what Coach Schwartz, the defensive coordinator, is going to ask him to do.
Barrett Brooks with us, and BB, Mike and I have talked about what the Eagles' needs are going into the draft, and do they need an offensive lineman? Everybody seems to say yes. If they don't draft an offensive lineman with their first pick, are you outraged? Or, just assess their offensive line and their needs there.
Well, I'll be disappointed if they don't. But, I know they're going to go best available. And I tell you what, I wouldn't be mad if they did pick up a big-time receiver like the receiver from Ole Miss. If they got a guy like that, I can understand that, But our biggest need right now is offensive line. They still need to go out and get a big-time free agent, somebody that can solidify a left guard position. Draft a guy high, maybe one. If they trade back and get a one, if they couple it with the third rounder and the 13th pick, trade back and maybe get a second round pick, then there is still a lot of guys that could fill that void at the right guard position in the draft because this is a very, very heavy laden offensive line type of draft.
Hey, with the deal of Alonso, that leaves a void at that outside linebacker spot. Now, I know Barwin moving up, they said he's defensive end. Do you see a strong side Sam on this team right now, or is that an area where they're going to have to target maybe in the draft? I have heard that Nigel Bradham from the Bills is a guy that is visiting with the Eagles. He played for Jim Schwartz. But is that a position that they're lacking, or do you see – I don't know that – I think they said Barwin's going to get an end.
Well, you know what? I think he'll get a chance to go at that Sam linebacker position just for the simple fact that's all he's played his whole career, his whole life. He is a Sam linebacker as opposed to him being a defensive lineman. It'll be hard to ask a guy to come in after playing linebacker all his career to line up against a tackle and play 60 plays a game. It's just not what you ask a guy to do. I can understand if you're a guy like, Brandon Graham. Brandon Graham played defensive line before he moved over to linebacker. But you can't ask a guy like Connor to do it. And everybody's been saying he's going to move to D-line. I can't see it. I think he's a little too light to do it. He'll run away from – not that he'll run away from off the lineman, but I think he'll take the path of less resistance as an defensive lineman simply because he doesn't know how to be a defensive lineman. So he will make a good Sam backer. And a guy that I hate to say it, and I'm saying it right now, mark my words, if he doesn't get cut or released, this is a system in which Smith will be able to play. Marcus Smith will flourish in this system. He will. He will make some plays in this system. He will no longer be a guy in which, we'll be talking bad about. He'll go in, make some plays. He's another year developed as far as being a linebacker in the NFL. I see Marcus Smith being a guy that's going to contribute this year. I'm not going to say he's going to be a Pro Bowl or anything close to that. But Marcus Smith, if he doesn't get cut, if he doesn't get released or traded, will flourish in this 4-3 system with Schwartz.
Barrett, because you played.
You just heard it.
Yeah, we heard it here first.
That was
that was strong.
That was
stuff
strong
from BB.
stuff right there, right? And he's a guy that when we talk about Roseman, we typically go right to him as the reason why we don't trust him in the draft.
Absolutely, I don't trust him either. But it's just from his build and what they're going to ask him to do. I see him being a guy that's going to be a reliable backup, not just a backup, but a reliable backup for sports defense. Mark my words. You heard it here first. Barrett Brooks said it today.
Well,
if he doesn't get traded, cut, or released.
Well, we're recording it, so your words are on tape. Hey, Barrett,
Absolutely.
Because you played the position, do you stud O-linemen that are coming out more? I mean, do you know, like, Taylor Decker, the kid from Ohio State, or little Raven Clark from Texas Tech? I mean, do you know these guys and kind of assess, like, what their strengths and weaknesses are? Or is there somebody else that I'm not talking about?
Oh, absolutely. I produced college football for ESPN on the weekends, and I've done numerous two Ohio State games with Decker. He's a guy that can fit in right now and play. If you move him in at guard, he'll fit perfectly at guard. But the thing is, I think Decker will be good at just being a guard. I don't know if he can make that transition out to tackle because he's not the best athlete in the world. He's the most technique sound guy. He plays with a flat back. His core strength is good. He has long arms. He'll play good and physical at that right guard position, but I don't know if they'll move him out to tackle. I think he'll stay there at guard. If you look at the guy from Notre Dame, he is a pure tackle. You can't move him into guard, but he's a pure tackle. He could play tackle for a long time. As far as that McCoughlin, what's his name, McCoughlin, whatever his name, from Michigan State.
Conklin.
I didn't do any games, right? Conklin. I didn't do any research. I didn't produce any games with him, but I did my research on him. He's a guy who's a better athlete. He can make that transition from guard to tackle. So if you did draft him in the first round, if you move him to guard, he'll be a very good guard, but he'll be an even better tackle once you move him out because he has the athletic skill to do it. Like I said, the guy from Notre Dame, Staley, he's pretty good. Stanley's pretty good. I think he's a natural tackle. I don't know how good he'll be inside because he's not as physical as the guys we just talked about. But I think that he'll be a good pro at tackle if you keep him at tackle.
And Decker's the class of the draft, or the jewel, if you will.
Ohio State, yes, he's Ohio State tackle/guard, yes.
We're talking with Barrett Brooks. A lot of NFL news and notes, of course, that are coming in. Let me ask you, Barrett, whatever Roseman has done, whether you like or not, what do you think is the identity of this team now? Because it seemed that has gotten away from this team, and it seems like that's something they wanted to reestablish. That seems to be a plan. It feels like Roseman and Peterson have reestablished a plan.
Well, you know what? They're working together. And that's the biggest thing. It's no longer, all right, you stay on your side of the building, I'm going to stay on my side of the building, Howie. I think they're going to work together. They're going to find a homogeneous type of commitment to one of the Eagles to get better. And that's the biggest thing that they need to do. I find it very, very settling now that both sides are starting to talk now. So now there's an intimate contact between the two. So when they make those decisions, you have a football guy at Peterson, and he's going to want to listen simply because he's new at this, he's a rookie at this, and he's going to take a lot of direction from his coordinators. So you'll have three football minds making a decision as opposed to just the GM or just the head coach making a decision. It'll be a concerted effort for everybody in the building to make these draft picks happen. So I feel comfortable with that. What I don't feel comfortable with is all right, now Fletcher Cox has a deal that he can look for as far as where he needs to be at as far as wise. With the signing of Jackson, leaving Denver, and going to Jacksonville, that set the mark at $90 million. Now, if you're going to sign Fletcher Cox now, it's got to be above that because I think Cox's worth to the Eagles is much more than Jackson's worth to Jacksonville and Jackson's worth to the Denver Broncos. So you're going to have to pay him upwards of 90 plus in order to sign him. Is there enough cap room? And right now they're sitting at about $27 million as far as cap room, and you still have to go out and sign free agents, and you have to sign draft picks. So I don't know if he can pull this off. He would, by far be the best GM this season. He'll probably be the guy that everybody's going to go to as far as being a guru if he gets his job done. But I will say that he's done an impressive job thus far.
Yeah, maybe like an executive of the year type of situation for Howie. If they
absolutely.
Now, let me ask
Absolutely.
you, that's if they are successful. Do you, there's a lot of, I think some people look at the Eagles as they didn't make the playoffs for 2 years in a row. Are they a rebuilding team or are they a team that's relevant?
Well, I think they're going to be relevant now. Since they signed Bradford back, they were very aggressive in trading guys that really didn't fit their system. I think Peterson wants to win now because he wants to get the bad taste of the previous regime out of the city of Philadelphia. He wants to make his mark, and I really believe he thinks he has the pieces in place once he signed Bradford to be successful. If you look at it, everybody's saying, "Oh, we need to find a receiver to take the top off." These offenses these days don't necessarily use receivers to do that now. A lot of tight ends have been, used to do that. Now look at Greg Olsen with the Panthers. Look at Owen Daniels up with Denver. These are 2 Super Bowl teams that have used the tight ends to take the seam and take the top off defense. So they do have that hybrid guy in Zach Ertz in which you can use to take the top off the defense. Now, are the other weapons feasible? I don't know. We'll see. I mean, there's a lot of young guys out there, and maybe they develop, maybe they take a step forward. Matthews has a step up, and let's see what the rookie from last year did. So, I mean, I don't know. I think they're trying to win now. They're throwing caution in the wind and trying to build a team with the guys they have right now. Not necessarily anybody they bring in, but with the guys they have now. The offensive line is the biggest thing they need to change, and once they get that, I do see them being a competitor.
BB, play GM for a minute for me because, they have 9 picks right now. They could get as many as 13 picks when these trades shake out. They might get a compensatory pick for losing Macklin last year. But if you're playing GM, okay, Barrett Brooks, you are the GM. What's in your wish list? Not who specifically, but what positions are in your wish list, say the first 3 or 4 picks of the draft? I know line, but, once you go beyond that, who do you want to see the Eagles drafting?
I want to get a receiver. I want a cover corner. Give me a rush in and a safety. They have to get those very high in the draft. In fact, I want that. I think first things first, regardless of the first-round pick or where they trade back to or wherever they're going to do, it's imperative that they get that second-round pick back for Bradford. They have to find a way to get them back. And I think these trades they got will give them a chance to get that second-round pick. There's a lot of good athletes. There's a lot of good worth in the second round. They have to take advantage of it. And then, that's going to be probably the first thing that they're going to be looking to do once the draft time comes around. They have to get that second-round pick back.
Barrett, I do want to ask you, because obviously you played in the league a long time, your time crossing paths with Peyton Manning and, what you know about him as a person and a player in your time crossing paths with him in your time in the league.
Well, you know what? I mean, playing against him, he's the worst guy in the world to play against, simply because, we had him in the championship game, and we lost the game, a Monday night game. We played him later on in the second round of the playoffs, and we ended up beating him. But during that whole time we were playing against him, no matter how far we got up on him, we knew he had an opportunity to bring us back. They say a lot of players say they love Peyton, but they really hate him, so they love to hate him. He wants everything perfect. He's a perfectionist, so he was probably one of the worst guys to play with. But I will tell you this: he's an innovator. He in so many ways took the quarterback position and revolutionized it. So in that aspect of it, he's one of the 2 best players to ever play the game. I think Rice being number 1 and then him being number 2.
Wow. All right. Barrett Brooks, Super Bowl champion with the Pittsburgh Steelers. You can see him weekday morning 6 to 8 on the Comcast Network. One of the co-hosts of Breakfast on Broad.
The pride of Kansas State. Make sure you throw that in there.
Always. Second-round pick himself.
We could go get Whitehair now. That's a guard we can get. We could go get Whitehair now.
Yep.
So,
there's a go to Kansas State. Right. That's a Kansas State guy. And I've seen him to the Eagles in some of the mock drafts and not in some of the recent ones as after the combine here. But, of course, we'll be in full draft mode here coming up shortly. We'll talk to Barrett throughout the process. All right, man, go get some sleep.
All right, man. Take it easy, guys. I appreciate you calling me now.
You got it. Barrett Brooks.